In today's lesson, we're going to begin the Renaissance unit of study. In today's lesson, the topics that we are going to cover include what does the word Renaissance mean in Europe. We're also going to talk about the ideas that came out of Renaissance, and we're going to focus on humanism and what that means, as well as an important writer during the Renaissance era. So let's begin with what does the word Renaissance mean? It is about a 50 to 100 year period in Europe from about the fall of the plague or the decline of the plague to about the middle of the Expiation era. It's about 50 to 100 years. Historians have narrowed it down to a span of years. It is the rebirth of art and learning in Europe after the Middle Ages. It started in northern Italy in primarily a town called Florence, and it eventually spread through all of Europe. The ideas that came out of the Renaissance, what ideas made the Renaissance important? It encouraged the use of credit and banking during the Renaissance. Banks began to be open. People began to store money into banks. Letters of credit also expanded supply of money and sped up trade. Trade became easier, trade became quicker and even more efficient. Also, the supply of money goes up as well. During the Renaissance, people began to focus on the studying of classics, such ideas as grammar, poetry, history, Latin, and Greek. Latin and Greek could mean language, could mean culture, could mean anything that revolves around Latin culture or the Greek culture as well. They also, during the Renaissance, focused on individual accomplishments. During the Middle Ages and eras before, it was all about groups of people. During the Renaissance, they began to shift to people, like individual people, one person's accomplishments and achievements. Now, we have talked about what ideas have come out of the Renaissance and what does the Renaissance mean. Now we're going to talk about an idea that came out of the Renaissance. This idea is known as humanism. Humanism is an idea that emerged with the Renaissance. It involves secular writers. Now, secular writers writes more about topics that are non-church related. The most famous is Niccolo Machiavelli. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote a book called The Prince in 1513. The main thing that is involved in the book The Prince is problems in the government. He speaks about main problems in the government. And The Prince is one of the main books involved in humanism and Niccolo Machiavelli. It is a non-church related topic. It is the most famous book to come out of the humanism era or the humanism topic. Now, the final thing that we're going to talk about today is Renaissance man. Renaissance man was a term coined during the Renaissance era. It is a man during this period who was considered an expert in many different things, many different disciplines. So, I have given you two examples here. Michael Jordan and Jay-Z. Let me explain to you how both of these would be considered Renaissance men. Michael Jordan, we all know, came through Carolina, went to the Chicago Bulls and the Washington Wizards, and he was a famous basketball player, one of the best of all time. That's one discipline. But at the same time, he also had his shoe company. Okay? That's another discipline. Well, at the same time, he also had a clothing company. That's the third thing. So there are three different disciplines that MJ or Michael Jordan did. So he could be considered a Renaissance man. Now, what about Jay-Z? How would Jay-Z be considered a Renaissance man? Well, he was an artist, rapper, songwriter, whatever you want to consider him. He is also, well, not anymore, but he was an owner of an NBA team, the Brooklyn Nets. Well, he had to give that up. Now he's an agent to athletes and other big-time superstars. So Jay-Z is also a Renaissance man. Oh yeah, and he's married to Beyonce as well. So he could be a Renaissance man as well. So Michael Jordan, Jay-Z. Those are the two Renaissance men that you can relate to. So today, we have talked about what the Renaissance means. It's a rebirth of art and learning in Europe from about the fall of the plague to Middle Exploration era. Ideas that came out of the Renaissance: banking, credit, studying of the classics, and individual accomplishments began to be focused on. We talked about the idea of humanism, and it focused on non-church topics. The most famous was Niccolo Machiavelli. He wrote The Prince. In The Prince, it spoke about problems in the government. We also talked about the Renaissance man, many different disciplines you have to be the best at. Michael Jordan and Jay-Z are the most famous of the two Renaissance men today. So this ends the Renaissance introduction lesson for today.